so delighted to welcome you to St. Louis. I hope you have taken a moment to walk down to our new park. It's newly renovated down by the Arch. If you haven't, it's gorgeous, and it's you can watch the mighty Mississippi rolling by and imagine Mark Twain and have fun. Thank you, Gammon. That was a great talk. And she didn't tell you the most important piece of information about that singing study. The song is "Row, Row, Row Your Boat." That was. So I'm going to take the microscope up a few notches, and we're going to talk about falls and community-dwelling older adults. Actually, it's a nice compliment because we tend to exclude people with Parkinson's in our studies because, as Gammon said, they have such a high fall rate and they skew our data in crazy ways. So most of the data you'll see today excludes people with Parkinson's disease in the work that we do. So given all the crazy things that are going on with people dropping like flies right and left in academia, I'm going to put all my disclosures up here. I dream of having disclosures someday from drug companies, but I don't have any. But there you have it. We're going to, a little bit more? Can you guys hear me in the back? Is that better? Okay. No? Yes? More? More. I think, there, how's that? I'll just do this. All right. So falls are the leading cause of injury death among older adults, and people don't often recognize this. I became a fall researcher. I used to be a home modification researcher, and I became a falls researcher when I was asked by one of my community partners to look into and give a talk to some community folks. And I was stunned as a healthcare provider. I did not even realize the significance of falls on the lives of older adults. It is a No, you're adjusting here? Okay. There. Testing, testing, testing. Nope, 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 they're telling me. Keep talking. There we go. Is that better? Okay, great. So one person falls about every 20 minutes. Every 13 seconds, an older adult goes to the emergency department for the treatment of a fall. They report the numbers at the CDC that 1 in 4 older adults fall, and I actually think this is inaccurate. I think it's more likely to be 1 in 3. That's a recall, retrospectively recalling falls in 1 year versus prospectively collecting data about how many falls have you had. So I'm going to say, the Susie Stark version is I think it's 1 in 3 older adults fall every year. They're more common than a stroke. I'd rather hear that my mother has had a stroke than had a fall because the consequences after you survive a fall are pretty dismal. So when we look at death rates among falls, this is the projected death rate. We do a really great job of developing interventions, and they have lots of efficacy in clinical trials, but we've not actually successfully implemented any of these clinical interventions. We see the fall rate continuing to raise over time in the US. Falls are an interesting thing. They usually are a kind of an interaction between a person's ability, and when I say ability, it could be their strength, their balance, their vision, their attention, their cognition, whatever, the behaviors that they have, and the context, or the environmental hazards that might be present. So when those three things get together, they look like this. So you have a 96-year-old woman who's climbing up 2 step ladders that doesn't have a handrail to get her turkey roaster from above the refrigerator because she's done it every year of her life, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So this is what we're talking about. These are the factors that are causing falls. So it's complicated and it's complex. There's lots of multiple reasons that falls occur. So if you have no risk factors for falls, that is, you're a healthy, average 65-year-old, you have a 1 in 10 chance of falling. If every time you add a risk factor, and Gammon went over some of the potential risk factors, impaired balance, a cataract, 4 or more medications, depression, being a woman, being over 80, every risk factor you add increases your risk of falling, such that if you have 4 or more risk factors, you have an 80% chance of falling. So it's a complex kind of phenomenon, but we're hoping that we can begin to address and pick off these risk factors and begin to reduce the fall risk. One of the risk factors I'm really interested in is activities of daily living because I'm an OT and I'm interested in how people perform their daily activities. So we know that there's a high rate of ADL disability among the group 65 and older. And if you look at this Medicare data over time from 1992 to 2013, you see that we have somewhere about 45% of older adults have ADL or IADL impairment, difficulty performing their daily activities. We know that ADL impairment is actually a risk for falls, so it seemed to me as an OT to be a good target for what we might do to address fall risks. So just breaking that down a little more, older adults will tell us, everything's fine, there's no problem in my house. But in fact, when we go in, they have about 4 or more barriers in their homes. Those things like the high piled up step stools and somebody grabbing a turkey roaster from above the refrigerator. Other typical problems include reaching stairs, sometimes without handrails, controls that are difficult to manipulate. There's lots of things that we see in homes that we're told are fine. And then this, I guess the doctor says, I'm glad to hear you're having no trouble with all your activities at home, and I'm going to show you, after they tell the doctor, these are the kinds of things I see. So this is when they say, I have an accessible apartment, and this is what the accessible apartment looks like. My favorite thing is the yellow arrows pointing to an upside down 5-gallon bucket that you would get at Target that they're using as their bath bench in the bathtub, which we think might be a bit risky. This is when they say, my son installed everything for me. That means I think this son actually wanted the inheritance. I'm not sure why he would actually create a hurdle for his mother to go into the bathtub, but I was at least glad she had a seat there. This is my favorite too. The therapist sent them some things home, and I usually go in and I find these piles of different types of equipment that haven't been installed properly that people actually aren't using.